Thanks, Hugo. And yeah, Tim, you took my quote. I think you're definitely the most marketing savvy and creative accountant that's been the legal bounds that we've had within our community. So thank you very much. And I think it's always super interesting to look at like the business impact and how you can actually leverage the strength of your brand to really drive financial and business impact. And I think maybe not show like that ranking, that slide to your CEO partners, because obviously then you can actually push down their pay if you build their brand really strongly. So maybe just show it to the CFO and the board, because then they can actually start like pushing down CEO pay. To discuss the findings of this and also like the brand multiplier effect, it's my great pleasure to introduce you our panel for the afternoon. So we'll start with Nicole German, the CMO of HSBC. So welcome to the stage. You get to pick whichever seat you feel most comfortable in. Vikrant Gaiwad, Global Head of Industry Market at TCS. And now I understand why you sponsored London Marathon. It's like it was pretty obvious what the purpose of that. Marcel Amstalden Miller, VP Global Brand and Digital Marketing, External Comms for Valters. Last but very not least, Craig Duxbury, Global President of Stein, with the new strong brand and dog.
Good afternoon, all. I've had the privilege of doing this for 3 years and facilitating this particular session. It's a great honour to do so. I'd like to extend the thanks to the IAA, David and the team at Brand Finance for doing that. Hugo, amazing with the numbers. Tom actually gave me some numbers at the start with this. I'm going to have to change them because I think they were different to what just appeared there. So you're going to get the difference between an accountant and an account man. But the first thing, I'd like to dive into some of those numbers initially and ease us in. And the first thing there, the 3 numbers with it. It was out of the top 100, not the 150, I thought. I think you look at that growth of about 7% year on year from last year to this year. And then when you look at that as well from the previous year, if my memory's right, there's about 8%. And that is just under, which is where my numbers get a bit dodgy. It's just under about $500 billion in value, which from a B2B perspective, you'd think is super impressive. But when you compare that, the cynical side of me coming out, when you compare that to the brand value in relation to enterprise value, B2B versus B2C, what do we think? Nicole, I'm going to start to you. Where do we honestly think we're at from a B2B perspective versus the B2C?
Look, I'm an optimist, right? We're making progress, right? Which I think is the really positive thing. I think there's a lot better understanding and awareness around the impact and the commitments of a lot more B2B organizations actually investing around executive level or the table or the board table, a lot more interest, a lot more education. And I think we've also seen a lot more volatility. Crisis it is, or COVID, or whatever it is. I think there's enough educate the board level that there is. And then I think at the end of the day, our leaders are also people as well, and they often they're seeing kind of that clever approach to brand and experience that actually, turns the light bulbs on for them. So what are we doing to deliver on that as well from the B2B?
Vikrant, with yourself?
So I think completely different from the industry, what Nicole represents. For the IT services and business services, I think as a market, it's showing robust growth for us. Obvious reasons, technology is front and center for any business it is. Skilled workforce is required and it's in short supply. And of course, everybody wants to reduce cost. These 3 trends are seen across the board. And Gartner says that in the next 5 years, we are looking at an average growth of 2.9 compounded per overall market size of around $3.2 trillion. So what that essentially says is that is one aspect of it. And the interesting part about the IT services, fact that it is still very competitive. The top 10 players just govern around 25% of the market share. So essentially that means is enterprise value is going to be a little steady as we go forward because those factors are already included in the price, the share price of those companies. The real interesting part is the change in buying behavior. So the way they are buying is actually started to mature. So what essentially that means is the customers are getting more curious, they are more cautious, they are skeptical about the claims that you make in terms of the value you bring. There is a statistics which just says that the number of trusted providers for a buyer have actually reduced by 50% in the last 5 years after COVID. What that means is the way they select the buyer has changed, and that also reflects in other surveys that we see, which is almost 84% of buyers are now not opting for a traditional RFP, RFI route.
Okay.
What that essentially means is they rely on few incumbents, and almost 89% odd. Actually, they just buy it from a group of vendors and incumbents that they have. And even in that, 70% is already decided before they even hit the shortlist. So these kind of numbers show that the buyer behavior has actually matured in our market. And what that essentially means, even in the incumbents, what we are seeing is they actually are no longer thinking in terms of whether you have capabilities and in place, but they are focusing on things like culture, fitment, and trust.
Okay, I'm with it.
That changes everything. What essentially means is while enterprise value will remain probably robust given the market size, there is a lot of work for people like us in B2B marketing to kind of get our work done in terms of communicating the trust, the resiliency part of it. And then over a period of time, we can actually develop increase the market value. And that's what we are seeing currently.
Marcelo, if I can ask you and take it to the theme, which is about the multiplier effect. I think we'd all accept that stronger brands have that multiplier effect when it comes to contribution towards business growth, whether it's the things which you go put on there in terms of talent, in terms of lower borrowing costs and kind of the rest with it. How is the multiplier effect within Wolters Kluwer? How does the board look at that? How does the business look at it? Where is it on the maturity journey with yourself?
Thank you. Good question. So Wolters Kluwer, if you don't know us, we are a $7 billion company. We sell information and software solutions. 60% of our portfolio is already, we call expert solutions. It's a mix of software and intelligence that we sell to our customers in different business and industries. And for us, it's a journey. So I joined the company 3 years ago, coming from B2C, and because the company said we need to build a stronger branding function. And it comes from us understanding that in any given moment in time, there's only like 5% of your potential customers actually buying something, right? The others are not. So that drove the need to build stronger brands. The multiplier effect is very visible on talent. We are a tech company. We hire a lot of tech talents, and we fight with Amazon, with Nvidia, with all these people. So who is Wolters Kluwer, right? So and then we start building a lot on talent branding, and then we saw really the impact on attracting the right people. So that was very visible. And among our portfolio, we also have brands that shows on a daily basis the power of the multiplier. Like Up to Date is one of our strongest solution brands. It helps. It's like clinical support for doctors, and we sell all over the world. And it's such a strong brand, and people love it. They use it as a let's update, like Up to Date. It looks as a verb, like the people say, let's Google it. They use the same way, and that you see also on the revenue, but also on the margins, right? So it's a very strong brand, and the business is seeing this, and internally is starting to go to other solutions as well. But it's a journey. We're not 100% on the multiplier journey on everything yet. But talent in some of our solutions shows that that's the way to go.
We're going to come back to that in a short while. Also going to bring up your alcohol past as well. Don't know Marcelo. Nicole, coming back to you, congrats, because I think you've gone from 71st to 51st in that table.
Yay.
Big round of applause.
You've got a caveat now with the B2B
side of HSBC, not the global consumer brand, which is obviously the big powerhouse there, and you're at that far end on the number one in terms of categories, kind of from a maturity. But we are in difficult times. Everybody is, we've got the headwinds, which we've kind of got. Now, brand strength can also have a direct relation to business resilience and contribution towards seeing us through those tougher times. How at HSBC does the strength of your brand help you to pivot in moments of need?
So first off, I've been with HSBC just shy of 2 years, so I'm going to have to.
Okay. Yeah. Get Hugo to sign it, then it get Hugo.
My CEO on the look, you know, HSBC, we're celebrating our 160-year anniversary this year. You know, every time that I've sat in front of a client or heard a client speak or looked at the data research or whatever, you know, the simplistic form of it is that HSBC is always there for me, you know, in the good times and the bad. And there's never a moment that is sort of the testament to your brand is when times are quite tough and challenging, right? And I would say that the new 2 words that are kind of replacing AI and the word cloud are tariffs and Trump, right? So, and so we're living. That we love actually, because it's actually what we're good at, right? And for us to be able to help to manage trade flows, to understand and provide advisory and knowledge and advisory service around kind of, you know, literally from a day-to-day moment of, you know, what should I do to help companies expand? And so what we're seeing in our client data and insight is, yes, they continue, of course, to want to grow. They're looking for financial services companies that have access to an international network for the kind of the large international organizations. But they want to have that surety of stability, and that's really where you can sort of understand if you think about we're leaning in.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't a day that we're not waking up and sort of saying, what are we going to go? So the volatility or an uncertainty for us and complexity is actually something that is a testament to our brand, and that point that comes back around trust, right? It's that's valuable. Times of when things are good, right? You can be, you know, as you were talking about, approach, which is a huge testament to the brand. The last thing I'll just add in that too is I think one of the things when we get kind of stacked up against our, you know, our direct competition too, and maybe some of them are in the room, I'm not sure, but it's about first mover advantage, right? So how can we actually provide, you know, what those clients need like today and now beyond kind of, you know, the running of the business through, like, which right now it is about, you know, knowledge and advice. Meaning in there. Yeah.
Marcelo, the timing's been great for you because you're about to not. You're about to do your first global campaign out there. So again, from a pivot and from agility to flexing things, tell the audience what you're currently going through there.
Thank you. Yeah. So what you said resonates a lot to me, Nicole, because we are celebrating 190 years next year. And this year is the first time we make a brand campaign. So a good timing. So, and we're not a company that do bold moves. So that's, I think, one of the secrets why we stay so long and survive so many changes. So we decided to go slowly, test waters, test different medias, different channels, learn and move. And that's very much in our ethos as we work. And because at the end, I think our customers also are looking for that strong hands to walk with them through changes in technology and everything. And that's what the brand is about. So we continue doing a lot of this connection direct with customers, and more for the broader audiences. We will build slowly and test, improve that, and so that the campaign is working. And we are very excited about it, actually. So I can't wait to launch.
We are too, by the way. Vikram, from yourself, you're obviously TCS is part of the larger Tata Group. We'll come on to marathon running in a little while, but could you, again, just for the audience, just give us a flavour for the journey that the brand is currently on, and how any current trends are impacting that?
Yes, sure. See, in the IT services and business services business, we clearly know that brands are created not through ad campaigns, but it is those what we call as million moments of truths. When our clients directly interact with our 600,000 plus employees across the globe. And, clients entrust us with their most mission critical applications, their business processes. They kind of expect that we will deliver them in the highest quality possible in the time frame that we promised and in the budget that we promised. Nothing different from an agency, by the way. But that for us, therefore, doing this year on year consistently is very crucial. So we have been doing that fortunately for a while, and that reflects in this very high industry beating standards from our customer satisfaction index. The challenge for marketing was, however, is backend service, nobody sees it, it's invisible all the time. In fact, it is good to be invisible because that's when everything is okay. So how do we kind of then make it visible? That was a brand challenge for us. And that's where the sponsorships kick in. Try to make them more experiential. That is the time when you not only, this sponsorship gives us platforms, marathons.
Let's just do marathons. Let's just get there. And we'll do beer afterwards. That's it. Like, do I do the beer before the marathons before the beer? We're going to do a run and then we'll have a beer afterwards. Okay, so there's always sponsorship envy when we discuss.
Yes.
And Nicole, you're the same. HSBC, global sponsorships. Marcelo, been there in the past. But in terms of the marathons and the inclusivity of it, why you chose marathons as the platform, again, could you just divulge to the audience how central that is to the brand building? And
it's about making the brand experiential. It's about building an emotional connection. It's very, very, very core to us. Last year we had around 4,000 of our clients run. That's a pretty big number for us. 8,000 employees run, and that's even better.
Did you run it?
I did 2 halves. So
you ran it twice.
I'm not there as marathoner, that's for sure. So for us, it's important. It's creating that our employees, and it addresses both our customers and our talent aspect of it. It also has huge impact from an economy perspective. The 14 marathons that we actually sponsored had almost $2.5 billion of economic impact on those cities where they did it. And they generated $249 million of charity. Absolutely beautiful from a community impact perspective for us. I think even more is what really makes it special is, if anybody has run marathon, you should.
Who's run a marathon?
Who has run a marathon? Okay. So I am sure if you have
run
it.
Beer.
So I'm sure that when you cross the line, that experience that you get, the high that you get, those create memories. So for us, it is about that building those memories through this platform. It's memories that they can retain with. I mean, we have so many good pictures of our clients, CEOs of the companies, enjoying that moment along with their family. So we have this, the platform gives us chances to kind of blend this moments for our clients. So it is not only millions of moments of engagement and truth, but it's also those memorable moments that we can bring, right? So that is useful for us. From an internal employee perspective, we have 600,000 employees, almost 200 active runners. So it's a huge benefit for us from an health and wellness perspective. So it has, as the multiplier is actually there.
And measurable, which is
absolutely measurable. Absolutely measurable.
That's cool. Marcelo, in your previous slide, Heineken, which is where the analogy comes from, we've discussed a lot of differences, B2B, B2C. I'm assuming that there are huge cultural and mindset changes from brand building from Heineken to professional services. But again, what would you say the core differences are? How can B2B marketers kind of learn from that?
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of difference. If in Heineken, not only the Heineken brand, but other beers they sell. It's a very social product. So it's by definition an emotional moment, right? So, and then in the entire company, this is very clear. Whoever you ask in the Heineken office, from IT to facilities to the marketing, they say, we are brand builders. That's what we do. We build brands. Supply chain says the same. We are here to build brands. Right? They understand this in the core of the organization. And that is a branding organization that does. So when you go then 10 years there talking branding, I think is the most common thing in the world. Then I moved to where I am now, where it's very rational. So we talk to lawyers, to doctors, to compliance officers and so on. So it's a very rational process of buying and understanding things. And then branding was part of it, but it's not as a strong culture as it is in Heineken. Said that, I think the reason why I moved there as well was the company wants to build a branding function. So we've been working a lot on creating common language and frameworks that everybody in the organization starts to understand the value of it. With brand finance, we also made a brand value chain explaining to the organization, if you invest on brands, this reflects on more revenue or more margin. And that's how you go. So all this starts to, it needs to enter via the rational side, let's say, and then slowly the emotion starts to appear as well. So I was happy to see the Adobe case that they show, because I believe in it as well. I do think you need also emotion on B2B, and yeah, it will come. But it's very different.
I think afterwards, Marcelo's been through with brand finance, the building the budget case, taking it to the CFO at the start of the journey. So afterwards in networking, I would definitely pick his brains for how you have taken that to your CFO and asked for more money. Time, can I just get a quick time check, please? Because I'm 5 minutes. Lovely, perfect. Nicole, I'm going to come back to you, please. We've just done some research at Stein IAS, and we're doing it with the industry as well with it. And there is definitely, from a global B2B perspective, that marketing is underinvested. No surprise there. But also this challenge of balancing, how do I allocate my brand budget versus my demand budget? How do I kind of work that through? To make practical advice from today, what would your top few tips be, please, to the audience for doing it?
For me, I'm the huge believer in the brand demand or the BDX framework, right? And to me, it isn't one or the other, right? And I think the work that we're doing and on our corporate institutional side of the business, like we've actually just brought two businesses together. We have a new management team. And really under the mantras of three things, really, one is around simplification, depth around client centricity, right? Really being data-driven, data and insight-driven. And the third is around scalable growth. So it's music to the marketing team's ears because it's a great level of focus, right? And so I think the work that I'm doing with our marketing organization is to say, if we can't do it really well from front to back, let's not do it at all. Because actually, it's almost like throwaway. So I would much rather to make the compromise to say, we're not going to do everything everywhere, but we're going to do this piece really well from brand to demand. So just getting real rigorous around focus, make sure that you can drive the measurement. And for us, these things aren't overnight either, right? So, but really ensuring now it is much easier for us to look at the signals. Is this driving growth? Is it not? And I think we've got enough of those case studies. I call them the myth busters, that when things have been turned off, like literally the charts go like this or what have you, right? So I think make sure you got that data, but push to make the compromise to say, let's just, if we're going to do it, here are things done, leveraging those assets, like whether it's sponsorships, leveraging the assets will enable us then to keep coming back and saying, okay, now we're ready to reinvest. Because look over here, we made momentum, and then start to bring sort of business cases back to the really start to invest in the business.
I think that's nice, because if you think of all the things HSBC does, and you're saying simplify it, prioritize it, focus, do things, fewer things, do them better. And I think any brand, regardless of size, can empathize with that as an approach.
We're a large global organization, and the notion of simplicity and consistency are. It's like the art and science, right? that when we have brand to demand,
Yeah.
it drives up. We get more for bang for our buck, basically. You have to be patient around that. But also that if we come together as one team, as kind of one or real commitment to brand deposits into the deposit into the brand bank. So
That's a good one.
And finally, Vikrant, Marcel, if we could quick fire on brand building is a long game. Yeah, it needs long-term sustainable investment, commitment, strategy and everything with it, which is hard to do.
Yes.
Yeah, hard to. Top tips to all B2B marketers out there for how do you remain sustainably on it and driving that through and don't buckle.
Yeah, one thing is straightforward. It's this aspect of balancing brand and demand is very crucial. And it's easy to say, very difficult to do. But more importantly, ensure things that work for us is ensure business. Ensure that when we create our marketing strategies, they're aligned to the business goals really well. Go all out when it comes to data. Measure everything that we can using all the systems that is possible. For us, it is about end of the day mapping marketing activities outcome to the 3 R's we call, which is relationship and revenue.
Okay.
So how do you do that?
3 R's.
You can continue exactly.
So 3 R's. Take those away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Marcelo, from me finally before I.
Yeah, Mike, so I think focus and measurement for sure. I think also consistency, right? So long term, you only you can get the benefits of the long term if you are consistent, and that accumulates over time. So I think that's something we need to be quite disciplined. Everybody likes to invent new things all the time and try, but I think you need to have some sort of framework that keeps the consistency in game, while allows you to explore new message, new platforms.
So we've got consistency, the 3 R's. Simplification, focus, prioritization with it. There's a gift from a wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful panel. We probably could have sat here and listened to this for a very long time. Marcelo, good luck with your first brand campaign, 190 years. I'm sure you can learn from Nicole, having done it for 160 years. Nicole, I think I've told you before that I moved to the UK in 2004, so I've been here for just over 20 years. And when the company brought me over, they were banking with Barclays. They're like, "Should we help you open a bank account in Barclays?" I was like, no, don't be silly. I bank with HSBC. And that was only because the HSBC World Match Play Championship that I've been watching on TV for hundreds of years at home. So I was like, they're like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, yeah. So that's why my current bank is HSBC's bank in Crawley, because that's where our office was. I've not been able to move it anywhere more central, more exotic since then, but that's kind of why I'm there. And Vikrant, I think it is what you talked about, kind of the whole purpose of brand with your talent pool. Because if I'm sure this is news to you, here at LinkedIn, we're not just an advertising business, run an amazing ad platform. We have a small kind of talent acquisitions business to help companies hire people. It's not super well known, but I'm sure I'm happy to tell you this. And we look often at how important is an employer brand in order to kind of really fuel your hiring. And we have concrete data with time to hire, cost per successful candidates significantly lower if you do pure brand campaigns, not just employer brand campaigns, but real brand campaigns. So we have lots of that data to share. So again, if you want to share that with your HR team, if they don't know about us before, then you can happily do that as well. I think our next panel are being actually mic'd up, so I might have to just win and buy some time for them. So the next fireside discussion is all about buyability. This is a new term and phrase that we are trying to coin here at LinkedIn. It's actually thinking about how do you get bought as a B2B brand? Because our data that we have together with Newton X, actually this Jolt effect, the book called Jolt effect, states that 40% of all B2B deals get stalled because the buyer group cannot agree on a decision. So imagine that, like B2B globally is, trillions of dollars of value. Actually, 40% of the deals that are being discussed at any given point get stalled because the buyer group cannot decide on which brand to buy. And a lot of that is around trust. So like the most famous kind of phrase in B2B is no one got fired for buying IBM, right? So, and it was interesting to see, Hugo, from your stats as well, that trust came up second on both the B2C and B2B brand in terms of like why you need to build a strong brand. So we have research that kind of proves the purpose of engaging with the buyer group and building both trust with the target buyers, which is kind of the product experts, as well as the purchase process experts, which we call the hidden buyers. And I'm sure that Mimi Turner and David Tipman will be able to kind of give a lot more information about this and much more data than I was able to do as I was waffling in here for a while. So I would love to welcome to this day David and Mimi to take us through buyability, B2B's emerging brand paradigm. Welcome to the stage, Mimi and Dan.
Well, thank you. All right, good afternoon. So
You need a ladder to get up onto this chair.
yes,
Which David doesn't.
I do not need a ladder.
David and I, sorry, can I just before you start, just to set the scene, we've worked together for 4 years. David in his role as research in Walk and me both at the B2B Institute and now my new role. And the best part of working with David is the expression that he has when he thinks I'm going to make a joke, which is like a kind of abject terror, and rightly so. But we used to have a stage show. I think of it as a stage show. It was actually a piece of research that we did with James Herman. And when we went on stage, because David is tall and I'm not, we used to make a joke about the long and the short of it.
Visual representation of the...
Which is so niche, but I'm so glad it got a laugh. Anyway.
Yeah. First two times we did it, it didn't get a laugh, and I was very disappointed.
I think that just shows that brand has become a much more important part of the paradigm, which leads you to your introduction.
It does. Thank you. So, Mimi Turner, Head of Marketplace Innovation at LinkedIn. And what we're going to be talking about is this concept called buyability, which is something you've been working on at LinkedIn. And I guess we're going to be exploring this idea and what it means for some of the people in this room, and maybe previewing some of the research you've been doing. There's a good session in Cannes coming up, which in my role as Walk, we curate the creative impact stream at Cannes, and we're very pleased to have you presenting the buyability research there. But before we unpack it, I want to go back in time a little bit, because there's a lot of backstory to this research, and I think people need to understand where it's come from before we get into the details. So you're at the B2B Institute at LinkedIn before your current role. I'm sure many of the people here are aware of the work the B2B Institute has done over the years. Some of the frameworks and mental models we all use now, whether it's the 95-5 rule, the B2B ladder that we worked on, things like promise to the customer. A lot of those came out of a really sort of fertile period at the B2B Institute. Then last year, you introduced a new idea called hidden buyers, which we loved. We named it, was one of Walk's ideas of the year last year, which is high praise. But this is really the backstory to buyability. So could you just explain a little bit what that was, what hidden buyers meant, and why because it was a little bit of a change of direction. So just talk a little bit about what that was.
Yes, I mean, so I think it's really interesting to hear the last session and the conversation that we're having about brand and its importance in B2B, and actually the increasing sort of like sense that is actually central to perception and choice ultimately in B2B marketing. When I joined the B2B Institute nearly 4 years ago, that was in fact not the central point of view of most B2B marketers. The idea that brand was as important was a sort of heretical perspective. And the experience, so I think the B2B Institute, Jan Schwartz, my colleague, who we've done a lot of work with, the work that we've done with the IAA and the ANA have really been about trying to develop the idea that my heretical idea is that in B2B, brand is 10,000 times more important than it is in B2C, because in B2B, it is the proxy for the people who use this brand for this product that you don't know because 5 years ago it didn't exist and 10 years ago the category didn't exist. This is a track record of proving that it has the ability to not be wrong, to choose it. And the stakes are higher and we're more cautious. So I actually came from a very traditional B2C background, including being the director of strategy of the Liberal Democrats prior to joining LinkedIn. But because I believe that brand is this untapped opportunity, and the B2B Institute had a really strong point of view on that at a time when it wasn't the orthodoxy. And a real trigger for us was when we worked with the team at Lions to introduce the B2B Lion category, which was one of the first things I did when I came to LinkedIn. And it's really, Nicole was just talking about data-backed insights. We know, because when you and I did the effectiveness ladder piece, which actually was in train, that's a piece of research which I sort of inherited, it had been done. But the data set that we had then of B2B case studies within the WARC database was 435 B2B case studies collated across 10 years from a global database of B2B awards case studies. And then we didn't really have a huge sample. And then we came to do 2 years after that, after the B2B Lion had been introduced by Cannes Lions, we had double that. So the kind of case study, the number of awards entries for the creative B2B Lion essentially doubled the amount of B2B case studies that were around creativity. So I think these big ideas of creativity, brand building were kind of embraced by the industry at the same time that we were doing research that tried to kind of demonstrate the value of the intangible, because that's what really brand is. That's why it's so hard. You know, there are a whole set of true things, only some of which are measurable. To define our world only by those that are measurable ignores the intangible things that are also true. And actually, that's why I am obsessed with correlating these intangibles that drive decision making into translatable into marketing levers that marketers can do.
So hidden bias. I mean, that's very much what happened with hidden bias.
Well, the kind of the way that we started is to think about B2B buying from the buyer's perspective, because the pipeline, the funnel, these are signals that marketers want to use in order to drive a mental model around sales activity. It's really about pipeline. But buyers don't buy according to pipeline. And what we really wanted to do is to understand in the really complicated world what happens from the B2B buyer's perspective. And so we actually realized very, very quickly in the work that we did with Bain that the differentiator for B2B is that it's group-based buying. A group of people make a decision. And once a group of people get together to make a decision, there are wholly different rules. We really wanted to understand, who is this group? And the people that we called hidden buyers are the people in the buying group or the buying committee who are not the target end user of the product. They represent the functions that we don't really think of in marketing activity, legal, HR, finance, procurement. But those parts of the buyer group are much more influenced by brand represent half of the decision-making power, and I actually think are more powerful because they actually own the power of veto. So marketers spend an enormous amount of time trying to engage, rightly, target buyers and the end user, but we don't spend as much time, and maybe we should, reassuring the people who are there only to work out what is the risk profile of this purchase, and addressing them with many more messages about reassurance. And the hidden buyers actually define whether you get bought or not. And it made me think differently about the job of marketing, which is sometimes you could think of the job of marketing as ending in being on the consideration set. You get to be the consideration set. You are on a, this is a marketing qualified lead, and it actually, the job of marketing ends. But actually, I think what we're discovering is that the job of marketing is all the way down the funnel, and that marketing much more heavily influences the reasons that you get bought. The reasons that you get considered might be to do with price, product, fame in a category, fame as a household name. But what actually gets you bought is trust signals, from consideration to preference to getting through the hidden buyer gap and then being bought. Actually, I became aware that these are much more intangibly driven. So the job of marketing at that point might only be performance-based, but it's actually trust that gets you bought. And that's what that's what the hidden buyer research took us to, the idea of buyability.
We'll come on to buyability in a moment. The thing that's interesting for me about hidden buyers is there's been this big push over the last decade or so to show how similar B2B is to B2C. In terms of the role of emotion, the importance of brand, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What this is doing is actually going, yeah, it is like that, but actually there are some real differences, and we have to understand the differences as well as the similarities.
The differences are the group-based dynamic, right? The group-based dynamic means that everybody who comes to that group is prepared to trade down the things that they think they want in order to get consensus. There's I think the most recent research I saw said that there are like 23 people in the buyer group. And you know what you do when you get 23 people? You regress to the mean. It's like that movie, 12 Angry Men. Like, the reason that was a movie which won 4 Academy Awards in 1968 because it defined a buyer group where one person was the deal champion is because it just doesn't happen that the one person who's the deal champion says, it doesn't matter about it doesn't matter about our individual gains. What's right is justice. That's why they made it a movie. But that is a movie about the buyer group. That is like 12 people, and they've got to get to an agreement. And regressing to the mean really favors the biggest brand, because you don't need to take a risk if you're buying something that other people think is safe. And I'm a kind of, I love biggest brands, just like I love rich people who have married good-looking people and have rich, good-looking children. I mean, I'm happy for them. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that life is going to work out. But I'm secretly on the side of, what if you're 4 to 20 in a category? You do a effing decent job. Your products are good. How do you build the unfair advantage? That's really what I care about. And I think that the biggest brands do, reaching Joe from procurement, so he thinks, sounds legit. By accident, they do that because they're big and because everybody's heard of them, and because being big and being heard of is a really strong trust signal for the people in procurement, who don't need to believe that one product is better than the other because that's somebody else's problem. They're trying to decide whether this is right for us as a business. They have a different kind of decision set. What we want to try and do is to try and find some really actionable levers to kind of accelerate the trust that you need to build through marketing activities that you can do, that to some extent compete with territory that's really won by people who are currently sponsoring Formula One cars, right? So that's how I think about the world.
So viability then. So this is moving hidden buyers onto the next phase. What did you want to achieve? What research have you done? Just talk us through a little bit of that story.
Yes. So I think you can maybe get from this sense of me already is that we're trying to find a thing that marketers can win with, right? That really is that is really a thing that I think is winnable. I think that can be done. And so I don't like to invent a new word like viability. Like marketing needs new words like we need a hole in the head. But I think the job of sales and marketing is to make these products more viable. And you can actually make them more viable. And we try to understand, if we kind of created this idea, we wanted to go again to buyers and find out, what do you really need to believe and to feel in order to feel confident to buy, right? And I'm really aware that in that sentence, there is not one quantitative metric that you can take. This is a series of intangibles which are inconveniently how decisions actually get made. Decisions do not get made on things that can be measured. Measurable things are retroactively fitted to things that people believe. And so we actually asked 750 marketers, 750 B2B buyers, what do you have to feel in order to feel confident to buy? And we actually did kind of like a big qualitative process. We worked with NewtonX, who have a really high data quality. And it came down to like a composite. There are 5 things that came out as really strongly influential. And the reason I'm not showing you slides is I'll be murdered, but also I'm still looking at the data. The kind of, what's interesting is very equally split. First of all, it's like the real table stakes, confidence, I feel like I'm buying a thing that can actually do the job. Peace of mind, which is, lots of things can happen, but I think that they can be managed, right? That's the number, that's one of the really key dimensions. The decision-making process was easy, another dimension. The 4th dimension was, we were aligned, like our buyer group actually was aligned. It wasn't that we were kind of polarized around some things. I need to feel that it's not just I had a point of view, but our group had a point of view. And then final, I needed to be able to defend a decision, even if the thing goes wrong, even if the whole thing goes completely pear-shaped. I felt that I had enough to be able to defend the decision that goes wrong.
And they were sort of roughly equal, were they? Or
well, does anybody want to have a guess? Then anybody had to have a think about, it can do the job. I feel that I can manage the downside. We were aligned. I felt that I could defend the decision if it went wrong, and the process was easy. Anybody want to have a little guess? Everybody gets points in this because there was kind of more, everything was a minimum of 20, but that wasn't the winning one. Anyone want to have it? So this was a regression. This was a regression because when we ask people, they give us lots of rational things. The number one, by not very much, and I wouldn't say that it was statistically significantly defensible, but the number one is I felt I could defend the decision even if it went wrong. I mean,
that's behavioral economics all over, isn't it? That's loss aversion versus gain.
It is. And this is built on a set of foundations of things, but it's still, it's a thing, right? What are you selling? I could defend the decision if it goes wrong. That changes what you think you're buying. I want to buy that. It's not what marketers are selling, right? And that's even more important than by a small amount, then I think I can buy. I want to buy something that does the job. Buyers in the buying group are in a defensive posture from day -20, right? So, yes.
Jason?
where there are very often quite a lot of players that are quite similar to one another.
Yeah.
So insurance, IT services, consultancy, etc., etc. And, you know, I've seen situations where the buying group just say, look, it's got to be cut down to 3. We'll put 3 forward. And then the difficulty is, how do you get onto the 3? How do you get onto the shortlist?
Yeah.
And my question is really, your head of innovation, to what extent does differentiation matter over just reinforcing trust and awareness? Is it better to invest behind, you know, persuading people you are a solid, dependable, always there kind of company, or to try and find some form of differentiation? And if so, is it about the fundamental product or service, or is it about some emotional thing like they're friendly, or they're bloody smart, or they're something?
This is a phenomenal question. I kind of want to give an answer. Well, I can give 2 answers. Let me just, first of all, give you a kind of research framework marketing answer, but then I want to give you a model by which you can think about the complexity of that question. So in the research that we'll be previewing in Cannes, which we've worked really closely with Tom, with the IAA, and trying to bring an industry alliance around. Nicole has been really supportive. We've done a lot to try and bring an industry point of view to this. The view that I think comes through, and also in the Bain work, is that innovation is a deeply attractive message to at least half the buyer group. To another half of the buyer group, it has minimal appeal when stacked against attributes like partnership, recommendation from people like me, from people who are like the company like myself. And it's a composite. It is a composite. So innovation, I think, can easily get you into the consideration set. To be bought requires innovation caveated with all of the same ideas of safety and trust. And I think that overall, more things get chosen because they're trusted and safe than get chosen because they're innovative. And in our Bain research, which I think is relatively public, we found that you are more than 20 times more likely to be bought, which is not to be the same as considered, but to be bought if everybody in the buyer group knows you on day one, compared to you are just recommended by experts. So experts, target buyers, they love, especially in software services, they love innovation, and they will want the innovative partner that they think can drive things to get bought. But that doesn't get you all the way through the process. So here's the funny story that I want you to take away. Well, or you might never want to speak to me again, but comedy is a high wire act, right? And David and I are in the comedy business. Look at David's face. He's just waiting.
Here we go.
So, I mean, obviously, I think about this stuff a lot. I mean, I think about it a lot. And my job is really to take 2 pieces of work a year, which are quite complicated, and then distill them into things that everybody in this room can leave and will use for the next 20 years. So it's not straightforward, but I think that the process of being bought in B2B is not a million miles away from the process of getting married if you are Indian. Right? Okay, so here we go. Right, so when you're Indian, like my husband is English, so we went through this, but like on PCP. When you are Indian, you just don't. It's not like you just fall in love. Oh, he's so nice. He writes poetry. Here's the invitations. I see you at the wedding, auntie. It doesn't really work that way. The process is that you may decide that one of the people that are in the consideration set is your favored choice. But at that point, you know, you have to face the Bengali buying group committee, you know, HR auntie wants to know, what is his family like? What is his business like? What are their values the same as our values? Legal uncle wants to know, yeah, why is he being pursued in legal cases by 26 skanky ex-girlfriends? This is not the career partnership for us. Finance uncle wants to know, what are his prospects? Doesn't care that he's a good kisser. That innovation strategy will not get you through the final selection process. And the job is to be bought. And it's a complex process, but
How did your husband do in that buying process?
he had to. Let me tell you. Bet again. You have to do a lot to beat the market leader in the consideration set. If he is not a doctor, he has to do some big stuff. So my husband, since you asked, had to go back to university, do an MSc in computer science and set up his own software business in order to convert from being a philosopher who has blue eyes and still is a great kisser to being an acceptable, strategic, long-term, financially sound partner who is a partner in our joint process of co-family development who fits in. And it's not the worst thing to think about as the process, because first of all, you realize that lots of people do it and there are no easy answers. And I think that's also true of B2B. Frederick is approaching to pull me off money of the stage. So let's get
on to some
yes. What do marketers do?
What can marketers learn from your husband?
Yes. You have to be category relevant. You have to be famous in your category. And if you want to accelerate that, you do it through social trust. Trust is what gets you bought. Product, price, features get you in the consideration set. Trust all the way down the line is what gets you bought. For marketers, I would say that recommendations and influence is core to your brand strategy. Over and over, we found that relational factors matter more than transactional factors. So a recommendation from a company like me, a former, a person I work with who's worked with them before, these are the most powerful and influential. A negative recommendation from a colleague you work with about a thing that you're thinking to buy is almost irrecoverable. A neighbor saying, yeah, I saw somebody leaving his house in the middle of the night and she was quite pretty. It's over. There's lots of stuff that you can't come back from. Accelerating category fame and social trust, which is socially constructed by people who are relatable to the people that you want to buy. So recommendations from companies like yours are incredibly powerful. They would stack rank more influential. And those all recommendations be product and price. The first thing that people are willing to get their companies to do is to pay more money for a less risky option. And that's across the whole group. So there's a lot. I hope you'll come to this process.
Sorry, just one more point, because I think that's very, very interesting in terms of the way we measure things like brand equity, because a lot of that stuff is not included in what we would think of as how I measure my brand. So there's a whole metrics piece here, isn't there? Just looking ahead, looking forward to where this goes next is, how do I actually understand how strong my brand is, my buyability is?
Yes.
There's huge amounts to unpack there.
We hope to give you what are the drivers of buyability and what are the marketing levers that most correlate to those. And then I think that it might be easier to think of it in those terms and to think of brand metrics are still, they belong to the brand. They're a very inside out way. Just like a customer promise is a promise to the customer, and a brand promise is a statement of truth about the brand. And customers prefer promises to them. I think that understanding buyability from the buy side is actually the key to unlocking what is actually how to be more successful at this without spending more money and with levers that you control and relationships that you've already invested in.
Fantastic. Well, we will hear more in Cannes then, I guess.
I'm excited.
Mimi, thank you. Round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. And I think now we're going to probably move away from no one ever got fired from buying IBM to think about like the buying group as a Bengali wedding. I've learned a lot about Bengali weddings over the past few weeks, but I've been traveling with Mimi to Singapore and here and hopefully down to Cannes. So we're being a lot more about buyability, I'm sure, and how can we get through the buying committee. That brings us to the end of the afternoon. So thank you all very much for joining us. We will have networking drinks outside. I had to walk around the building to get to the microphone. I've seen this pretty nice spread out. So I hope you can stay and mingle and pull around like Hugo to see if we can actually learn more about the data. If you are interested in more about this, we will have a B2B session in Cannes to kind of talk more about the research and the buyability piece. If you can make it to Cannes, the full report that Mimi has given you a little teaser of will be presented at the Global B2B Brand Summit that we organize within the IAA, and it will be in New York in October 14th, not 4th. I had a 4 in it, but I had the 10 days wrong. So if you can make it to Cannes, then hopefully you can make it to New York. Thanks again to our speakers, our lovely panelists, to the team over at Brand Finance, to Tom and Tan and the IAA. And with that, it's a wrap. And see you outside.